This is just a brief follow-up to my last video. I just want to make a couple things clear. A couple of friends of mine informed me that they thought that I was saying that most drivers want to hit and kill people intentionally. That wasn't what I was saying. I was saying that some places, such as the city of Toronto where I lived, it's very clear that most drivers there don't care if they hit and kill you, meaning that while they are driving, they're not concerned about it. Maybe they're emotionally disconnected from it. I made a comment that I sometimes wondered if some of these drivers actually wanted to hit and kill someone. That was just a comment. I did not mean that to literally apply to most drivers out there. I just wanted to clarify that. When I was talking about the dark side of human nature, of course I'm talking about the animal, I'm talking about the body-mind, if that makes sense. Uh, the animal, not the spiritual self, and not even the intellect. A part that is something that is in us genetically that goes back thousands of years. Um, Evil itself, I look upon as something different, something that doesn't even belong in the natural world. I've gone into that before on a couple of my videos. So what I was talking about here is something that isn't necessarily evil, but is savage and is a part of our nature then that comes out of us. And it doesn't really matter which organization or group of people are in control in a way. This dark side will always be, until this is a psychological problem in the individual. We externalize and blame on different groups or different individuals, but actually it's something inside of humanity itself that we've got to come to terms with. There is the issue of the ego, which I look upon as not necessarily part of our nature. Um, I'll mention a name here, Michael Tsarion. I may not agree with everything that he said, but I certainly agree with him when it comes to the human mind. I do look at the ego as something that appears to have come about due to a trauma at some time in our past. Again, I'm not saying that his theory is correct here, that during what was called the Great Flood, a great catastrophe caused the ego to form, is a defensive mechanism to avoid a complete psychic breakdown. That's what he believes. There's no way that I have of telling whether or not that is correct, but the general view on that, I generally agree with the perspective that the ego is something that has come about. It is not natural. I've always known that. I've always looked at the ego as a mask, that people are not being who they really are when they're wearing this mask. And even when people are being more instinctive, following their instincts, or being more honest than when they're wearing the mask of the ego, I look at the ego as something a little bit different. So to me, there are different states of consciousness. I mean, the id is different than the ego because the id is the reptilian brain. That's the part of you that wants for yourself and what the body wants. I mean, that's one state of consciousness. Ego, which is another, I just wants for the self. It's not out of necessity, which is the case with the id or the body mind. The ego wants to build itself up into something big and important. So that's separate. And then you have the spiritual mind, the spiritual consciousness, which is different. That has no interest in anything materialistic. And there's the intellect, which is different in my opinion. That's the brain's ability to calculate and to make decisions and formulate thoughts, opinions within itself. And then you have what you might call the body mind, which in my opinion is separate from the ego, because that is a natural part of you. But again, the id plays into that with what you want for your own self-interest. Along with that, I'm not exactly sure where the id ends and where the body begins in the psychological sense. Maybe they are two of the same. I'd have to think about that. But anyway, to stay on topic here, I think that we have a part of us that is still the savage, still the panic, the need to survive, which may be a part of the id, the reptilian brain. Maybe that's what it is. We are gradually, slowly evolving away from that, I think, in my opinion, but it's taking a long time, and it will take a long time still. And that's my point, is that as far as we've come, there is still a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde aspect, but again, Michael Tsarion would call a schizophrenic issue with humanity. If you read a novel like The Lord of the Flies, you have to wonder how accurate that is, how likely that would actually be. That if a group of kids were to be stranded on an island, how likely would they resort to their savage nature? I think that novel is actually very realistic. Um, but I mean, this is another reason, for evolution and for the importance of spiritualism, and to feel and to see more deeply, and to not be trapped inside of the animal state of mind or even the intellect. All these things are faulty. Um, there is a spiritual intuition, and if you follow that, in my experience, that you can do no wrong. Whenever I've had a strong intuitive knowing about something, it's always been right. Instincts can mislead you, just as the heart can mislead you. And that's even another state of mind, isn't it, really? What I often think of as the true self, the inner child, whatever comes through the heart, if you're true of heart. And so anyway, I'm not trying to say that people are all savages, right? I was just trying to point out that there is a side of us in our nature that still has that savage in it on that level of consciousness. So that's what I was saying. I just wanted to clarify that. I know I want to depress people or try to promote an idea that we are all evil or something. I sure as hell don't believe that. I wouldn't be making these videos if I didn't, believe that there's, hope, and there is, I believe. Anyway, I'll be continuing this line of thought with my next video or two. Peace.